So, a couple weeks back, I was scrolling through my Twitter feed, sipping my morning coffee, and I came to this post about a Star Wars first-person shooter. The post read, not to add to the Star Wars 1313 pain, but when LucasArts was shut down, we were also working on First Assault, which was nearly done. So, double crying face. Star Wars First Assault. Oh yeah, I remember that game, but I'm not sure a lot of people would. This one kind of flew under the radar and got crushed by the disappointment people felt about Star Wars 1313's cancellation back when Disney took over Lucasfilm and LucasArts stopped making games. So I did a little extra research and discovered this game was super close to being finished. In fact, LucasArts were only a week away from releasing a public beta. What? So why wasn't this thing released? Okay, so the year was 2012. Star Wars First Assault had been in development since 2009, and it was supposed to be the start of a 3-game reboot for the Battlefront series. Interesting. We had Pandemic's Battlefront 1 and 2 in 2004 and 2005, and then Free Radical were building Battlefront 3, but that got cancelled in 2008. This was an overly ambitious project evolving what we saw in the first 2 games into something way bigger. More of everything, more vehicles, more planets, infantry, sky to ground combat. It was huge. So after that was scrapped, LucasArts went and started developing this, set to release in 2013. Star Wars First Assault was an 8v8 first-person shooter where you'd play as either the Rebellion or the Empire in fast, ground-paced maps inspired by the original trilogy. Basically, Call of Duty meets Star Wars Battlefront, but there was something a little different about this game, something darker, grittier, and this might be one of the reasons it was never released. It was supposed to be more violent. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. So in 2012, when Disney bought Star Wars, all video game production at LucasArts was kind of put on hold, meaning this game stopped, Star Wars 1313, the Darth Maul game, all on hold. But even with the buyout, production still continued behind the scenes. They just weren't allowed to talk about it. And here's what's even more heartbreaking. LucasArts were also well into production of First Assault's sequel, Star Wars Wingman. Where First Assault was more focused on shooting, Wingman was about larger scale vehicle battles featuring speeder bikes, ATSTs, AATs, starfighters, ground-to-sky gameplay. The plan was to release this one in 2014, and then in 2015, finally the game we'd all been waiting for, Star Wars Battlefront 3. Combining all the best parts of First Assault and Wingman with an added single-player campaign, space combat, and more. The culmination of all of LucasArts' hard work in a single game. And that's kind of been the promise of Battlefront 3 ever since this idea was first conceived. After Pandemic created Battlefront 1 and 2, they wanted to go bigger and better, which is eventually part of why their Battlefront 3 was never released. It was just too big an idea, among other reasons I might revisit in another video. A lot of reasons this game was never made. But of course, these plans were never fulfilled. Disney buys Lucasfilm in 2012, and then in 2013, publicly announces that LucasArts will no longer be making games, cancelling Star Wars First Assault along with 1313, Darth Maul game, both of which also have interesting development stories I've talked about in other videos. But I'm just trying to get my head around this. If a game is so close to being released that you're about to launch a beta that people can start playing, why was it cancelled? Why can't I play this right now? Why can't I go to the store and buy this? Well, I'll get to that in a sec. There's a few reasons. But first, let's talk about the game itself and what was included. What was so great about this game was that it was solely focused on ground combat. LucasArts were given the direction to make this a purely first-person shooter experience. Unlike the developers who worked on Battlefront 3 at Free Radical, the First Assault devs didn't need to worry about space combat, about vehicles, force-sensitive characters and heroes, larger scale. They could take the time and the resources to refine the shooter mechanics of this smaller budget Star Wars experience. They could spend the time focusing on getting its core mechanics correct. A lot of the maps that we've seen, mainly the Tatooine map, there's also some Bespin and a few others in the trailer, they look very first-person corridor shooter kind of style. But this game had so many different weapons as well, new weapons that were going to be canonized, attachment for weapons and optics, different ways of looking through your rifle, upgrades. There was a squad system, ion grenades, thermal detonators, placeable turrets, personal shields, and even a decoy hologram mechanics, kind of similar to what we've seen in Halo and perhaps even Apex Legends. Game modes would include a standard 8v8 team deathmatch called Attrition, and then also a capture point mode where you'd have to claim the enemy's base. There's a mode called Sabotage where one team had a bomb and had to transport it to the other team's base and blow it up, kind of like Counter-Strike, and a payload mode, which was similar to something we've seen in Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch. And in addition to all of this, First Assault was also going to feature quite a sophisticated and dynamic music system that would play different tracks recorded by the London Symphony Orchestra, depending on various in-game factors. So this would be a mix of the classic Star Wars music we're also familiar with, as well as new tracks drawing inspiration from the game and the worlds you're on. Also, respawns in this game were pretty unique, something I think a lot of people wanted to see in Battlefront. Respawns would occur in waves, and players would appear aboard a dropship as it dropped down onto one of the map's capture points. This acted as kind of like a glorified lobby screen, and you could even snipe at people down below from the ship as you landed. So before you even made it into the map, you could actually try and take down a couple of enemies. It's quite disappointing seeing how close this thing was to being released. There's a few articles online you can find which have interviews with anonymous developers who worked on this at LucasArts, and here's something interesting I found in an article on the Gaming Bible. It was ready to be released on the store, and then like the week it was supposed to go live, I think they announced a Disney buyout and just delayed the beta. But we kept on working on the game. So why? Why wasn't this thing released? Well, there's a few main reasons. First Assault was going for a grittier feel. I mean, check out some of this footage. I'm sure it's nothing compared to other modern shooters and games with heavy violence and gore, but for Star Wars, these kind of blood bursts and effects aren't really something we've seen, apart from maybe in Jedi Outcast. And remember, who just bought Star Wars at the time? The guys who make this stuff. So let's say this is the first game Disney put out after buying Star Wars. They decide LucasArts can complete development, and they release the most violent Star Wars game ever made. How does that go for their reputation? I mean, this really ain't all that bad, but Disney might see differently. Tony A. Rowe, the weapons production leader, gave some insight into this. Part of it was because we were developing a couple of games that were a little more violent. Not a lot more violent, not gory, not embracing blood and gore and viscera and such, but these were Star Wars games for grown-ups, or at least for teens, not for kids. And he also talked about an interview that the Disney chairman and CEO Bob Iger gave around the time, where he vowed to look into video game violence in response to the Sandy Hook school shooting of December 2012. So again, Disney wanting to pretty much separate themselves from any type of video game violence. Now, another reason, First Assault was a multiplayer-only title, meaning it would likely need to have some sort of live service or ongoing support to update the game, add new content, bug fixes, prevent cheaters and hackers from taking over. This just wasn't another Star Wars story they could put into the world. There'd need to be some type of ongoing development, and that wasn't something Disney seemed like they were willing to work on. Game development at LucasArts came to an end in 2013, with Disney deciding to partner with other external publishers for video game development. In other words, they made a deal with EA, but LucasArts does still exist. They just don't make games. When it was closed, about 150 LucasArts employees lost their jobs, and now only around 10 remain, as LucasArts still operates as a video game licensor, but they don't have the capacity to support and update an online game. And then there was also the future plans, the plan to develop Star Wars Wingman and Battlefront 3, like I mentioned earlier. How did this sit with Disney's plans? At the end of the day, every time I make one of these videos about cancelled Star Wars games, it always comes down to one outstanding question. Why did Disney shut down LucasArts? Why not keep making games within the company? Why outsource this when you're one of the largest, most innovative entertainment companies in the world? I mean, they're doing crazy things with The Mandalorian, future Disney shows, Industrial Light and Magic stagecraft technology, which uses Unreal Engine 4 to model and render the backgrounds and worlds you see on these giant screens. That's what they use to film shows like The Mandalorian. This here is video game technology. Same engine that built Fortnite, Jedi Fallen Order. They understand this type of video game technology, so why not keep using it for games? Well, back in 2013, LucasArts made this statement. After evaluating our position in the games market, we've decided to shift LucasArts from an internal development to a licensing model, minimizing the company's risk while achieving a broader portfolio of quality Star Wars games. So it's all about minimizing risk. The beta build of this game was about about $10,000 in certification fees away from going live when Disney declared a media blackout. They just needed that extra 10 grand to approve this thing, and we could be playing it right now, but it never happened. At the end of the day, making video games is hard, and for now, Disney don't seem interested in doing this by themselves. Back in the LucasArts days, other developers were able to approach LucasArts with game designs and demos, and these projects would be greenlit and developed. Like the Battlefront games, developed by Pandemic Studios. They're developed by Pandemic externally, and then published by LucasArts. Obviously, both companies are working hand in hand, but LucasArts aren't actually developing the game. So it'd be great to have a similar model in place for future Star Wars games. We all know how closely EA works with Lucasfilm, and currently EA holds an exclusive license with Disney to develop Star Wars games, but who knows, maybe this will change soon. But I'd love to know what you guys think of this game based on the little information we have about it. Is this something you'd play? Would you still want to see a Star Wars first-person shooter made? Oh, and you can also find some of those other videos I mentioned here, the Darth Maul one, and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and join my Discord. Tell me what other cancelled Star Wars games you want me to cover in a video, what else you want to see, and thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew, I'll catch you soon.
Stay bombastic.